Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well. We've got an issue with the API and also the myfexbook.com website is under maintenance. There isn't anything that we can do currently. We just have to be patient. And so by having an issue with the API, we're not getting any data into our spreadsheet. So it's just one of those things. We haven't got any shifting on the day because the myfexbook website is down. But this will still run the QDB scores. It just won't have the day shift. That's fine. It will just purely be technical. And so that's still fine. We still can use the sheet. Not really a problem. But ideally we have the sentiment included. And that gives us more confirmation about the direction, because this is your bias for intraday. When they sell it, it should be coming up. However, they did get really paid on pound USD yesterday, but we had a Bailey speech in the morning, and that obviously really skewed things. So we should be seeing red down here, and we should see green up here. So maybe Kiwi CAD could be a little bit naughty. Perhaps that might be due a reversal. But ideally, we have the sentiment just to aid us in our bias. Right? The technical risk calc has improved. We were off the lows. We were really quite ugly last Friday. As we closed into the weekend, we were quite poor, and that's now improved quite a bit. And if you remember, it's taken into account indices, VIX, yields, and the dollar. And so the higher up that goes, the more risk on will be. So I was wondering whether or not, when we get to pretty high, we could look to take profit. If we're really low, we could be looking for longs, because you're looking for buying the dips basically, because these indices are mega strong on the high time frames. So that's something we could be looking at. So if we get really high, maybe take some profit. And if we get really low, look to go long. You wouldn't really want to be selling indices. And I'll show you what I mean, because all you could do is have to zoom out. Okay, so let me move my remote desktop. We'll start with gold. We'll make the box. We'll do a punishment box. And so we can draw one here. And that's the support. So it's because they've sold it against its moving average. So we create a support. We might come down and retest it, but we've got that support. So we're looking for longs if we've got the crossover. Okay, now let's look at the indices. Now DAX on Friday. Yeah, it was Friday. I put a line here, and I put the word panic stations, and I was expecting that to break. And by doing so, it would really cause the sentiment to shift. No one can afford that drawdown. And so they might be trying to break even. And it's basically exhaustion and destruction. And that's it. So they got destroyed, and they had to capitulate, and we had to buy. Yeah. So what you're doing, you're looking for buys, not really looking for sells. Okay, I've been saying this for many years. You don't want to be caught short, because this will pump, as it wants to just annihilate the retail. And the thing is, they were quite long, and then we had to sell. We got a little bit too extreme. Yeah, we got to 14%. So it pretty much exhausted the bears, and then the new bulls came in, and they got destroyed as well. So we should be around equilibrium, around about 50%. It's a natural resting place. So we are a bit too extreme there, so we actually saw a reaction, and I had to blow them up. And so that was a spot on forecast from Friday. And so we had a break. That did it. And it probably did it again. We saw another wick. But if they were looking at technicals, we made a higher low, not a lower low. All right. So the thing is, when they're undergoing so much heavy drawdown, they're not looking at technicals. They're thinking about emotions. And I think they're thinking about having to exit. Now, if they looked at that itself is a bullish indication. There. If we made a lower low, yeah, probably get out. It would probably continue to fall, but we made a higher low. See that wick. So that's DAX, and it was just destruction, and this is destruction. And it's just basically going to gobble up people's stops. US 30, and so we are going long. So we've got to be careful. We're probably going to get the sell, sorry, and then if we do, we'll get the crossover. We can make a box. The last place we made a buy, which is here. So it had a little bit of naughtiness, into much they sold it, and then they did get paid ever so slightly, and that looked like a little bit of a ruse, and we really bumped, and up we come. So that's the level of interest if you're trading this particular instrument. They're your levels. Okay, S&P, and then there's not much to report about the robot. There was an error in the calculation, which I could probably show you briefly. And what had happened, it was opening dollar yen buys when it shouldn't have been. So there was an error on my part on the calculation on the formula. So it's kind of frustrating, but at least I identified the issue and it's now fixed. S&P, well, we're going to possibly get a sell. So we might need to fall to flush those guys out. So we haven't got a crossover yet, but we're close. Withdraw box. Yeah. Yeah, here-ish. So this is currently support there. And so if we fall, we might come back into that zone for a bounce. I'll just show you the formula. I can. Go to API. And it was just this funky formula. See, Google Sheet was recommending a formula called match, which I'm not used to. That's fine. Okay, that's fine. I have to go to my physical machine. Go all the way across. And so it recommended not to use VLOOKUP, which is something that I'm used to using. And saying match. So it suggested this formula, and now it should be fine. So what had happened is that this bit here was incorrect. It was basically trying to match dollar yen to that range, but it's not right. It needs to match not the currency pair itself. It needs to match whatever's in here. So this is based on the max or min for our strongest or weakest. And that's the thing, it was trying to match the dollar yen, but it should be matching whatever was the strongest or the weakest. So it's a little bit complex, but we managed to identify the issue. And it took me a while to spot it, so apologies for that. I should have spotted it a lot earlier. I could have probably called it on Wednesday, Thursday, to be honest with you, because Friday mucked us up because we had lots of dollar yen trades, and we know the reason for it, because we had an error on the calculation. So that's now fixed. All we're going to do now is simply wait for the MyFX book to load, and then I'll do the API stuff, and then the sheet will be updating, as and when, every 15 minutes. So it might happen. It might be all day. I'm not sure how long this is going to take. It could be hours. I'm not sure. But so just remember to trade safely. As soon as it comes back online, I'll let you guys know into Discord.